Hey, I'm Josh from Vacuums R Us in Colorado, and today we have a full-size Riccar canister with the symptom of no power. So a little bit of background on these machines. This is a much older model of their full-size canister. It's a 1700. Their newer series would be like .2, .4, .8, etc. The most common reason that these don't turn on is actually a problem in the hose. So on these units, as you know, if you're working on one, the power controls, all the controls are up here in the handle. And most commonly what goes wrong is either something inside here goes wrong or something in the circuit board inside the unit that this communicates with goes wrong. The problem is they had some supply chain issues with these hoses and had to change their supplier. The new hoses they started using were not compatible with the circuit board in the old machines. So if you have an older unit like this and your hose is the culprit or your circuit board is the culprit, you actually have to replace both. You can't just buy a hose and throw the hose on. You have to open up the machine and replace the circuit board. I'm not sure if they're even available right now. I know they were very expensive for the kit when they were available. I'm hoping on this unit though that our issue is the power cord. And I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot a few things. There's really three things that can go wrong. Either your cord reel fails, your motor fails, or your PCB or circuit board and hose fail, right? So there's the three things. And we can hope for a cord reel or a motor. Those are actually less expensive, typically speaking. So I'm going to open it up. The cord is not retracting. That's why this is all knotted up out here, which leads me to believe there is a chance with this customer that they're going to be doing a cord reel. I'm also not aware if those are available anymore. These machines were discontinued many years ago, and so a lot of parts are running out. We fortunately do have a boneyard, and we do have a unit in the boneyard that has a functional motor and cord reel. So if we find the cord reel is defective, we will have a recondition option for this customer. All right, before we start this repair, disclaimer time. This video is for informational purposes only. These repairs should only be done by factory authorized technicians in vacuum stores. If something goes wrong here, I am not responsible for any issues that might arise. If the vacuum becomes sentient and eats your cat, not our problem. Seriously though, watch the entire video. A lot of these repairs are very difficult. Make sure you're confident in performing this repair before you start, because the last thing in the world you want to do is take this machine apart and then bring it into a repair shop because you couldn't complete the repair. Many repair shops, like ours, will not accept machines once they've been messed around with. So make sure you can do this before you start because you're in it to win it. Okay, so we're going to open the machine up. I'm going to remove the bag, get that out of our way. To get the filter out of the way. Pulling the filter out will get us access to a few screws. Riccar is very repair friendly, so they do use Phillips heads. We don't have to worry about any bizarro screws or fasteners. If I remember correctly, all of the fasteners on this are the same size, if I remember correctly. So I'm taking out 4 screws that are holding in the kind of the filter cover right here. So I've got 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4 so far. All right, I'm going to need a flathead, and there's 2 tabs right here on both switches. I'm going to put the flathead in there, and I'm going to kind of lift up at the same time, and that will release the switch. And I've got a tab on the other side as well. I'm just going to kind of wiggle in there until it pops out for me. There it goes. So I've got a tab right under here that connects in there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I've got, you can see right there, there's 2 different tabs. Come on, baby. There we go. And then I can probably wiggle. There we go. Pop the other one out. There's a spring right here that causes the power button to pop back up and down. So now I have access to a whole bunch of screws here, right? So I've got another, it looks like 4 I'm going to take out. Again, all the same size. And that will remove that. At this point, I also am able to remove the bag door, and I can unplug these 2 wires from the circuit board so I can get the bag door out of the way. And these 2 wires, you certainly always take pictures. If you have any concerns, you might forget where something goes, but these are different size plugs, so you can't plug them in wrong when you put it back together again. All right, so now I have a total of 6, or is it 7 screws? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws that I'm going to take out, and that should bring the entire lid up. These screws are set far in and my bit is not super magnetized, so the screws are not coming out, they're just coming loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this up. So as you remove this, there's a large cable loom right here that you'll want to disconnect, and it just, well, the whole thing will pop out on you. You squeeze and pull and it should disconnect. There we go. All right. Okay, so on this, the screws that are coming out that we're holding the top in are actually significantly larger. They're these gold screws, and they're quite large. I don't know if these are aftermarket screws, if somebody else was in here, or if these machines use a different screw size for the older machines. I haven't been into a lot of the ones that are this old. This is really old. But yeah, they're all big. Another thing I noticed, I don't know if you heard it when I was taking the screw out, but I heard it. I heard plastic crack. The screw mount actually is sheared off right here. That goes into the housing, sheared off when we tried to take the screw out. So of the 6 screws that hold the top housing down, one of them now is faulty and isn't going to hold anything down. I don't see any way to rig that the way it attaches to the body here. That's not ideal. I think we'll be okay provided nothing else breaks. It happens when working on machines of this age. Stuff just snaps, unfortunately. Okay, so now that we're in here, now we can start doing a little bit of troubleshooting. So I got my cord reel here. I'm going to grab my multimeter and my power from my cord reel. Just pop this reel out right here. You can unhook the cord reel right there. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to check continuity to see if power is going through the cord reel. Ooh. And I also notice I've got a burn mark on this plug right here, a pretty nasty burn mark. So it's entirely possible that we've burnt pretty good right here and no longer have continuity because of that. So continuity might actually test good through this cord reel, but in fact there is a continuity issue right there. So I'm going to turn my multimeter on. My multimeter right there is going to allow me for continuity testing. I always test before I test to make sure my continuity meter is working right. And I don't know which side is which. I always forget. So I'm going to touch one side of my plug, and then I'm going to touch where it's coming out here from the cord reel. And if you can hear it beeping, that's telling me I do have continuity. So I'm going to test the other side of the plug to make sure that both sides are good. And both sides are indeed good. So that means that power is flowing through the cord reel. The cord reel is not my issue. It's kind of unfortunate. I was hoping that that was going to be what was going on. But again, I'm not in love with this connection here. And I suspect that that may actually be my problem. So for testing the motor, I'm going to jump the motor directly. The motor will pop right out. And I have 2 blue wires going into my motor. So I have a thermal sensor right here on the motor, and it's a heat sensor, right? It's attached to the motor. You got 2 wires, one comes in and one goes out. If the thermal sensor kicks, then we don't get power to the machine anymore, right? So I'm not going to mess with that, but I'm going to bypass it. The 2 blue wires right here that are going directly into the motor bucket, those are the power wires, right? And I'm going to bypass the thermal sensor entirely, bypass everything, and I'm going to jump the motor. I'm going to run power directly to the motor using what we call suicide cables. Okay, so I have my suicide cables here, and I know there's a disclaimer on this video, but I'm going to give you another disclaimer. I'm about to hot wire a motor directly. There's going to be bare live wires. Do not do this if you're not comfortable with it, if you have any reservations, okay? So I'm going to hook up my jumper cables, or suicide cables as you may, directly to this red plug. The motor is relatively secure. I'm going to verify that I do not have any exposed wires that are making contact with anything. I'm going to hold my motor in so it doesn't jump when it starts. And the motor sounds fantastic. It sounds good. So this allowed us to bypass absolutely everything in the system to verify the motor is not the problem. I know a lot of times the people who haven't worked with appliances, when something doesn't turn on, the first thing they go is, oh, well, the motor's dead. It's usually the last problem. That's usually the last thing. Usually if a motor fails, it's loud, it smokes, terrible things happen. It's pretty obvious something awful's happening. It's usually something else. Again, I suspect, I am highly suspicious that it is actually our connection right here that is potentially our problem. So I'm going to actually try to hotwire this system so that I can jump directly to this connection here that I have my concerns about. So I'm going to put this back together to degrees. I'm going to plug my lid back in so that my circuit board is plugged in, all right? And then I'm going to put this back on and plug it in so that I can hook my hose up to this, which is what has the actual on-off power switch. So now I've got my hose hooked up. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to jump with my suicide cables directly to this cable that I have my suspicions about. I think I'm going to get a good solid connection with these cables because I can kind of shove them in here, right? And make good connection. And if I'm able to power from here, I know that this connection is actually my problem, which I suspect it may be. Okay, so I'm verifying that nothing is touching. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. And then I'll hit my power switch here. And I have power. So my issue is actually this connection between the cord reel and between the connector that connects to the circuit board. And this is great because we can rig this up. We can bypass that connection entirely. I'm going to take all this apart again. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to bypass this connection entirely and wire directly into the cord reel. We can make a good, safe, and secure connection doing this. The reason that we have this connection here is to facilitate ease of replacement of the cord reel. So in the future, if a cord reel ever is done with this machine, a cord reel replacement, what we're going to do is we'll just have to cut the crimps that we're about to put on here. So I'm going to cut this wire, and I'm going to cut this connection off. Now theoretically, you could probably try to find this connection somewhere and replace the actual connection, I suppose. But our customer cares about their product working. And this is a safe and secure way to get this done and done quickly. All right, so I'm going to strip my wires. All right, so not a lot of room here. I'm going to twist my wires together. And I'm a real belt and suspender guy when it comes to this stuff. I actually zip tie my wire connections. This takes some of the strain off of the wire nuts that I'm about to use. There's a lot of vibration, obviously, in vacuum cleaners. They get knocked around, so I don't love wire nuts. I don't trust them. So I go ahead and I zip tie to make the wires pretty secure there, and then I will wire nut this as well. If you wanted to get really out of control, what you can do is you can heat shrink these as well. I think that's a little much, but twist our wire together. Go ahead and zip tie that, take the strain off. All right, so now I'm going to tuck the cord reel back down in here. And then I'm going to tuck these wire nuts down here. It's great. We got a lot. Well, there's a lot of space in general in these particular Riccars. Inside the motor bucket area, there's a lot of room inside to do all kinds of things. So that's great for us today because we got plenty of room for this stuff. Okay, so we're going to put the lid back on. We're going to connect this big old this cable assembly over here as we're putting this back together. Okay. Settle this back on top. Remember, we had that one mount broke, so we need to be careful tamping these down. All right. Now I'm going to put these large screws in, turning my torque way down so that we don't break anything. I really do not feel like replacing this housing. All right, so at this point, before I go any farther, I'm going to plug the lid in before I put anything together. I'm going to double check and verify that the repair worked. Okay, so we're going to test it now. All right, power works. Fantastic. We'll put the rest of it back together, get the last screws in. All right, so if we remember correctly, we had this plastic plate up here. Tuck those wires right in there. Make sure we got plenty of play because those wires bend back and forth. Okay. All right, and remember that we had the actuator spring over here on the power button side. And these power buttons will just snap right back on. The tab should snap in without any problems. Filter back in. Final test. All right, and we are good to go. Hopefully you enjoyed this video from Vacuums R Us in Colorado, fixing a Riccar 1700, brought to you exclusively by Vacuums R Us Colorado. Like and follow, I don't care. Hopefully this worked out for you. You got some troubleshooting tips here, different possible things that can go wrong, and I hope your vacuum gets up and running.